It's Saturday, the 1st of February, and we're already picking up the pieces of another aviation disaster, this of a Lear 55 medevac flight that crashed on takeoff out of Philadelphia last night. Here's what we know so far. The aircraft and the company involved in the accident was flying this 44-year-old Learjet Lear 55 X-Ray Alpha Uniform Charlie India of Mexico registration, but operated by Jet Rescue, a Miami-based medevac flying outfit. This outfit specializes in providing air ambulance services out of Mexico, South America, and the Caribbean, back to the United States. On board the aircraft was a crew of 4, a pilot, a co-pilot, a doctor, and a paramedic. Also on board the aircraft was one pediatric patient and her mother. At the time of this recording, they're reporting 7 total fatalities, the 6 folks on board the aircraft, plus 1 person on the ground, apparently in one of these cars, and a total of 19 additional injuries here on the ground. As this is a developing story, these numbers may change. The medevac flight was departing runway 24 at Northeast Philadelphia Airport, call sign medevac 056, with enough fuel to get to Branson, Missouri, where they were planning on making a fuel stop there and then continuing on to Tijuana, Mexico, to drop off the patient and passenger. Weather at the time of the accident was a 400 to 600 foot ceiling in mist and light rain with a temperature above freezing, a temperature and dew point above freezing around 47 to 48 degrees Fahrenheit. According to ADSB Exchange, this flight had originated out of their base in Miami and landed just 4 hours prior to their departure. The accident occurred shortly after takeoff. The aircraft crashed just 3 miles off the departure end of runway 24 on Cottman Avenue. Let's listen to the ATC data on live ATC.
Medevac, med service 056, on departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff, wind 25010.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 24 with a right turn to 290. A right turn of only 50 degrees of heading change.
Medevac, med service 056, contact Philly departure 123.8.
123.8, Mike Tango Sierra 056 medevac. Thank you, good day.
And that's the last we hear of medevac 056. Attempts to call the aircraft from both approach and tower were unsuccessful. The aircraft had already crashed. There was no Mayday call or sign of distress from the crew prior to the crash, almost immediately after takeoff. Let's go look at the ADSB data. The entirety of the ADSB data here on ADSB Exchange represents a time frame of less than 1 minute. We can go over each data point. We'll be checking the signal source is ADSB data indicated right here, and the rate of climb or descent is shown right over here. So backing up here, first data point, 171 knots, 625 feet, ADSB altitude, climbing at 1,792 feet per minute, 180 knots at 2,000 feet per minute, 183 knots at 2,800 feet per minute. The Lear 55 is a very hot jet, extremely fast climbing as well. Next data point, 187 knots, 3,000 feet per minute, but we're only going through 1,250 foot of altitude. Next data point at 1,450 on the altitude, still 2,600 feet per minute. I mean, these data points are just matters of seconds apart. We're at 1,550 feet, climbing at 1,600 feet per minute, 1,400 feet per minute, 896 feet per minute. So the rate of climb is slowing down. We're still at 207 knots, accelerating to 214 knots, 448 feet per minute. Now note the turn. They get the right turn started, but they only make it to a heading back here of about 240 degrees. The clearance that they were cleared for was a right turn to 290 degrees. So they never made it the right turn onto their on-course heading. Now the aircraft begins a turn to the left, 448 feet per minute, 320 feet per minute, turning to the left. Now we're starting a descent, 228 knots, 1,650 feet of altitude, 448 per minute rate of descent, 768 foot per minute rate of descent. Again, we're looking right over here, 231 knots, airspeed increasing, 233 knots, 1,000 feet per minute, 241 knots at 1,425 feet, 3,520 feet per minute. The crew has lost control of the aircraft. 247 knots, 7,000 feet per minute rate of descent. They're about to come out of the clouds. 7,000 foot per minute rate of descent. 246 knots all the way until the last data point shows an incredible 11,000 feet per minute rate of descent, 246 knots of ground speed. Complete loss of control of the aircraft. These numbers do not indicate an aerodynamic stall, as is being widely told on the internet. These ground speeds are steadily increasing, and the clean stall speed on the Lear 55 wings level will be something along the order of around 120 knots. These ground speeds indicate speeds well above stall speed. If we download the KML data from ADS-B Exchange and drop it into Google Earth here, we see the 3D version of the data. Here we see the turn to the right and then the steady turn to the left. And looking more obliquely, we can see the climb up and then the sharp descent down. Though the data ends here, the aircraft ended up here on Cotman Avenue. Unfortunately, it is likely that there is no cockpit voice recorder or data recorder on this vintage of a jet, nor is there a requirement for those to be on that jet. Door camera footage is going to prove to be very valuable to investigators, and this one in particular shows the aircraft descending out of the clouds, well out of control, rolling and turning at the same time. And the audio from these cameras sound to me as if both engines are operating at full power. Now, the light that people are seeing here, a lot of people are speculating that there was an onboard fire on board the aircraft prior to impact. These are the landing lights from the aircraft. Additional dash cam video shows the aircraft descending the final moments in a near vertical descent right up here. Again, this light that you're seeing here of the aircraft is from the landing lights. There's another camera angle available here on Twitter. The aircraft is located right here behind the trees. There is no sign of any in-flight fire on board the aircraft prior to impact from this angle. The huge fireball that erupts after the crash is a result of the fuel on board the aircraft and apparently the oxygen bottles that were found in the post-crash wreckage. This glow is amplified by the 400-foot ceiling overhead. This is going to be a very difficult accident for investigators to investigate due to the lack of data available on board the aircraft and the complete obliteration of most all of the evidence of the aircraft in the post-crash fire. My first impression looking at this data appears to me that this is a classic case of spatial disorientation on behalf of the crew. But before the NTSB can rule out spatial disorientation or rule in spatial disorientation, they're going to have to painstakingly remove every other possible cause of this accident before they can blame it on something like spatial disorientation. Now, we've seen a series of these accidents that was in fact caused by spatial disorientation here fairly recently, right here on this channel, particularly the Guardian flight from Reno, Nevada, the PC-12, departed in a blizzard back in February of 2023, and the Hawaii Life Flight King Air crash in Hawaii in December of 22. But before spatial disorientation can be ruled in, the NTSB is going to have to rule out some sort of a mechanical problem with the aircraft. Particularly of interest in the Lear 55 is the yaw damper system, the yaw damper which you need to turn on shortly after your takeoff, and also the condition of the spoilers as well. Those spoilers need to be set to retract after takeoff. Either of these two systems can set up a mechanical problem with the aircraft, which can make it very difficult to control, especially in IMC conditions. Also of particular interest to investigators will be the crew makeup, the experience of the crew, the currency of the crew, the fatigue level of the crew, how much have they been flying and working, all the different human factors of the organization itself. But the cause does not look to me to be that of an aerodynamic stall, which is being so widely reported on the internet currently. This investigation is going to take a while to get to the bottom of. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.